Hi everyone, just thought I'd do a quick video just to kind of show off this little development setup I've got going on. So the first thing is download the Visual Studio Code, which is just a nice text editor from Microsoft. Once you've got that installed, you can open up a folder, create files, all the great stuff. And there's also a C++ extension, which if you click on this button here and then search for C++, then you can there'll be a button for installing the C++ extension, and we get clang formatting, auto completion, error checking, all that kind of good stuff, even support for debugging. And what I want to show is how we can use the integrated terminal. So hit Control and tilde, you get a terminal, and by default this gives you the PowerShell. So I'm going to just run through now how we can download the MSys2 system and install GCC and have a bash shell running inside here. So the first thing we'll want to do is go to our browser and just Google for MSys2 and click on the first result. And then the one we want is this MSys2 x86 64. So this is for 64-bit systems, and then this is for the 32-bit system. So we're just going to download that. I've already downloaded this, so I'm just going to open that up. Let me just find that off screen. So I'm just going to double click on this MSys 62 thing. So what we get is this setup file that runs. We're just going to select next, and I find it easy just to leave it at the default because it kind of helps later on with some paths. That shouldn't take long to run through. So while that's installing, we can take a look at this page. The home page just has some really nice kind of default kind of things to help you get set up. So once it's finished installing, we can open up the terminal and we can just run these commands, and that's just going to set up some basic stuff for us to be able to install GCC. Okay, so that's completed, so I'm just going to leave this checked on because I'm going to want to run this. Just hit finish, and then now we have a bash shell, which is really cool. We can do things like list, well, if we list the C directory, that might help. We can even go into our own user directory, that kind of thing. So what do we want to do? We want to run this code. So you just type pacman SYU. So pacman is the package manager that is built into this shell, and it basically allows us to download libraries, programs, that kind of thing, and they're all pre-compiled, ready for us to use. So we just hit yes, download everything. So what you're going to get here is it's going to say warning, terminate MSys2 without returning to shell. There's some thing where exiting from terminal doesn't work, so you just literally have to come up here and just hit close, and that should be fine. That's what they tell you to do. So it pauses for a second while it's doing some stuff. Give it a moment and it should come back. There we go. So that's done now. And now the next thing is if we go to our start menu, sorry, I've just shown my taskbar here. So if we go to our start menu, now if we come down to M, then we should get MSys 64-bit. So now we can run this again. I'm just going to run the MSys one again, and you have to run this thing a second time, this second line. So we'll just run pacman-su, and then there's all these extra packages now that it has to download and install. So I'm just going to let it do that. Lots of things here like OpenSSL, curl, core utils, so we can do all the compiling, some basic GCC libs. There's all just kind of all this stuff that just makes things useful. There we go, so everything's installed now. We should be able to now just download some packages. So I'm going to use pacman, And we can search for some packages now. We can type capital S and then little s. That's going to do a search. So we should be able to search for GCC. And then we see we've got all these libs for, well, we've got this whole packages that bring everything that we need. So the whole tool chain, and that's what we want. But we actually want to grab the x86-64 tool chain. So this bit of text here, I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to do pacman. Now instead of doing a search, I'm just going to do capital S, and that will actually install it for us. So we can go paste and take away the parentheses, and there we go. And it's going to ask us, do we want to install all these things? So I'm just going to hit enter for default, and then yes. And I'll pause the video and come back in a second. So that's all finished installing, and now we just simply close the window, and now when we go down to our MSys2 folder, we can click on MinGW 64-bit. So open that, and now we can type in GCC version, and we'll get all the kind of compile flags and the version, and we're getting GCC 7.2. So that's pretty cool. Now, how do we get this integrated into Visual Studio Code? Well, that's actually pretty simple. The one thing we want to do is replace the PowerShell with the Bash shell. So if we just go to File, Preferences, Settings, that's going to open up this user settings.json, and that's stored in your kind of home directory. And so this will be anything you set here will run across all kind of instances of your Visual Studio Code editor. So on the left here we see all the default settings, and you have to put your user settings here on the right. So let's search for terminal, and the one we want is not the external terminal, but we want the integrated terminal. So the one we want is the one that's on Windows. So you can see by default it chooses PowerShell as the from Windows itself, but we are going to choose the one from MSys64. So if we come over here, we just change some settings. Now actually one thing you can do is if you go to some of these things and change something like view zoom in, then what that should do is, there we go, so it changes the zoom level. So if we go up, then it changes that actually in the settings. So I'm just going to leave it at default, and then I'll show you put a comma, then we're going to go to the next option. And then the thing we want to do is have this, so we'll just paste it in, and the value we want is, I've actually got it in a text editor over here. This is the path to your Bash installation from MSys64. So you can go searching through that, or you can just type in the default, whatever one you want. But whenever you installed MSys, then whatever you set your installation path to, just replace with this. Now the next option we want is we need to pass an argument to Bash to run it in interactive mode, and that allows it to be embedded in Visual Studio Code. So the way we do that is with this code, this line, shell args, which is just, this is this one. We have to pass -i to that executable, and that means that if we hit save, actually we don't need the comma there, just hit save. If we close this one and we hit Control tilde, then you can see we've got I'm not sure what this is what's happening here, but let me pause the video, have a check. So we hit Control tilde, and we will get the shell integrated into Visual Studio Code. Now there's one issue here, which is that it can't find some programs here. It's kind of getting a bit weird. It's actually grabbing some program from my Git installation. So that is because we have some paths, some environment variables that are not set up correctly. So we're going to want to do that. And another thing we can do is somewhere here you can set up, I think it's of the environment, yeah, the integrated environment, and we can pass in some environment variables that we need. So again, I've got a line of code here, and I'm going to paste that in. So let me just open this up. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the value to path, which is that's the Windows path environment variable, and we're giving it this line from here up to whereabouts here was copied from the Windows settings, and then I kind of prepended it with the MinGW stuff. So if I just save that, have a comma, take away the comma. So now kill this terminal and run a new one, so we get no errors, and now we can do ls. We can cd into the C directory. Oops. There we go, and we can go to your home directory. All your Windows stuff is accessible, and we can even do GCC now. So there we go, running GCC inside. So I've got this blank CPP file here. I'm just going to do a basic let's just print something out just to show that it works. And here we go. Let's just do that, and let's go to, where did we save this? This is in document CPP. So it should have opened us in the right folder, but for some reason it didn't. I think it's because we have no folder open. So if we let's open the folder. Go to Documents, CPP, select, close, and now this should work if we open the terminal. Yeah, we open up in that terminal. So whether we have main CPP, we can do dash g++, main CPP, give it a couple of seconds. There we go. So run it. So hang on a second. There we go. I'm printing it out. So what else can we do from here? So we can actually run pacman from within here now, and we can search for things like clang. So we can see that we have a bunch of options here. We can install Clang 5, which is pretty cool. Clang tools. Yeah, so let's install this one. And we'll hit yes. So we're actually installing it from within the shell now here. So now we have LLVM and Clang installed. So we can do something like, we should be able to do Clang version. So then we can see that we have Clang version 5. So let's try and compile my program with that. And run the file. There we go. So we have Clang and GCC running within Visual Studio Code. Debugging. So we can actually debug this program as well. This works best from GCC. So let's set up some properties in another JSON file. So the actual extension itself has a way. We can hit Control P, and I'm just going to type cpp. Command palette. There we go. So command palette is Control Shift P. So hit cpp, and we can go to Edit Configurations. So now this is a per project configuration. So we can actually add include paths in here. And we have these configurations. So configurations, we have the Mac configuration, we have the Linux configuration, and a Win32. So we can actually add a whole other configuration here. If we come down to this line, add a comma, and then enter, we're going to add an extra one. So again, I've actually gone through and done this before, so I will paste this in. I'll put the text in the description as well. So the mode is clang x64. That will work with GCC as well. And then we're going to put in all these kind of include paths, which point to all of the standard library and headers for C++. And then we have the library path. So we're just adding to the path here for linking, that kind of thing. So we hit save on that one. Failed to pass. Where did I miss that? So I missed a semicolon, so closing curly braces. So that should work now. And if we come down here, language mode, when we come to our main, we can see that we've selected the MinGW, and we can choose between the Win32 or the MinGW. So we're going to choose that one. And for the actual debugging, we want to go to debug and add configurations. So we're going to add one for the gdb.exe. So we'll click there. And what do we need to do here? So we need to enter the program name. So this is going to be probably workspaceRoot A, just for now. And then path to LLDB. So we want to put in the path to our installed version. And let me go find. Here is the actual path, the default one. So again, this is actually, I've got an extra quote. So there we go. And too many quotes there. So that should all be good. So now we've set up the debug stuff, we've set up the includes. Now all we need to do is, let's compile this with debugging symbols, which pass the G parameter. And we should be able to go into our program. And I'm not sure what good this is. Let's put in a variable. Save that. Add a breakpoint. Launch. Start debugging. Hit F5, and things start up. And we can see count at the moment is 0. And if we step over, we can see count is 42. So that's yeah, pretty cool for text editing. So that's pretty cool for you know, a nice kind of simple, clean Windows setup. This isn't bad. You know, it's really quick installation. You get Clang, you get GCC, you get all these other options like you can search for Boost. You get Booster. This kind of is not completely up to date, but they get updated pretty quickly. So we've got Boost. We have STL2. We have GLFW. We have quite a lot of libraries here, so yeah, have a search. You can even go to GitHub and search for what packages they have. So I'm just going to Google MSys2 GitHub, and you can see all these packages get listed here, and there's quite a lot. And these are usually kept pretty up to date, so yeah, it's a really good project, and it's a nice simple way to get something going. So hopefully this is useful for you, and that's it for me. Thanks very much.